Hello. In last lecture we created a basic fragment and we called it in the activity using code. Today we will advance the application and we will add fragment in the XML as well as call fragment from the code. We will also do replace operations. We will also implement a callback in the fragment that will call a method in the activity, and we will also get a reference of the fragment in the activity just to show the concepts that we learned in earlier lectures. So let's start with a new project called Fragment Advanced. So I start a new project, go into the file, new project. I will call it Fragment Advanced. Choose font and tablet. I am using API 23. Choose empty activity. I keep the same name and I press finish. My new project has been created. Let me close the older project. Again, the first step is I will add the support library. I'll go to file. I'll go to the project structure in the file. Go to the app. Go to dependencies. Go to plus library dependency and I add the support-v4 library and I press OK. The first step is again to convert my activity to a fragment activity. I will make sure that I am using the fragment activity of the v4. The onCreate is already there, that is fine. I want to see my layouts. Now in this program we will actually be adding two fragments and we will be working side by side with them. So for example, we will be having a fragment called detail fragment and another fragment called report fragment or list fragment, let's say. So yes, let us first try to create few fragments. So again I will use the simpler method. Let me call it list fragment, maybe report fragment. You can see another file. I will use the same extends fragment to make a fragment. I am making sure that I am importing the support library. I will add a string tag just in case where I need to print some log messages. String tag equal to report fragment. Now I will have to first implement the onCreate view, but like last time, before going to onCreate view we will have to create some layout files. Actually we will be doing multiple things. We will not only be creating layout files for our fragment, but we will be creating different layout files for even our activity. So our first layout file for our activity will be same as we created in the last example. That's a very basic layout file which uses frame layout. Doesn't do much. Except an ID field. I will give it the same name as last time, container. That is fine. I can see the design, it's very simple. Now I want to add another layout file which corresponds to the landscape mode of my activity, because what I want to see is that when my phone is in the portrait mode, I want to see only one fragment, but when my phone is in the landscape mode, I want to see two fragments. So let us add another layout file, and this we have done earlier this. So my file name is the same name as my another layout file, which is activity underscore main. The root element is linear layout. I will currently leave it, and I will choose the orientation. Let me switch on the magnifier. So I have given the activity main, everything is same, and I have chosen the orientation. I change it here, portrait is already there, I do landscape, and then I press OK. As you can see, when I do this, another activity underscore main has been created, and you can also see that it shows land, which refers to the landscape. I will again do the same thing and will try to create another layout for a large device such as a tablet. Let me again go to this, right click, new layout resource file. I will give again the same name. We give the same name because we want to have the same resource ID. Linear layout, and this time I am more worried about the size, and I will say I want to make it for the large size. That's it. Now you can see that there is a third layout file has been added for the large. So now we have a portrait, we have a landscape, we have whenever we are using a large device such as Nexus 9 tablet. Okay, so now let's kill the magnifier, and we will now try to change the layout of the landscape and the large. So for the landscape, as you see currently it is exactly same, but we will soon be changing it to adding two fragments into it, and we will make sure that these fragments are added using the XML method. In last program we saw the method of calling by the code. Let us try the using the XML method. So in my linear layout, I again start, I call a fragment Android layout. So the first field that I want to give it, that what fragment I would be calling. So this we define by calling by an attribute called Android name, and the name refers to the class file that we will be using for the fragment. So the only fragment that I currently have is the report fragment. So you see that I am giving the complete path till the report fragment. Then I will give it a ID, Android ID equal to at ID at plus ID slash, let's say, report core fragment. I will choose a variable called layout weight. I will very soon explain you why I am doing this, and I will give it a value of 1. Now for layout width, I will choose a value called 0 dp, and for layout height I am choosing a value called match parent. Now when we give 0 dp, what happens? Number one, that we are giving a weight. So our weight will decide that how much area it occupies. Height we have already defined. In fact, I can just remove it here. And define it next time as weight. I don't want to do match parent. I don't want to do wrap content. I will just say 0 dp. Okay. This may sound bizarre to you, but it is not that, because the weight field will control how wide my fragment is. But first let me add another fragment here. So first I will go to add another fragment, and let's say I will call it detail fragment. I do the same thing. I extend fragment. I make sure that I am using the support library. I implement the on create view method, add override public. You know now why we do public, because it will be called from outside. On create view takes 3 parameter, view group container, and a bundle of, let's say, saved instance state. It will require a view to be returned, and that view both for detailed and both for report fragment. Let's also implement the same code in the report fragment. And to all the imports, similarly I will do a tag to the detail fragment. Fine. So now our empty bodies of our fragments are ready. In order to create the view that this method requires, you will have to create the layouts. So let's first get on to the layout of our individual fragments. So I am going to the layout, and I am going to add a new XML of the layout XML file. Wait a second. So let's call first let's create the layout file for the report. So XML layout file, what name do we want to give it? Let's give it the name fragment underscore report. Finish. Let's go into the text. What do we want? This is fine, this is fine, this is fine. Let's add the orientation. Android orientation, I will use vertical. Now I just want to create a very simple layout where I will be having a text view and I will be having a checkbox, because the idea is of today's program is only to show you certain concepts. So let me just have a text view, which is very simple text view, just shows a title so that we can distinguish which fragment it is. So width is match parent, height is wrap content as we usually do, and we are just doing a text. Let us hard code the text for the time being, and I will call it report fragment. Okay, this is fine, and then we will create a checkbox. Why we are creating checkbox? Because I want to associate a listener to the checkbox, and through that listener I will try to show you how to go from a fragment to activity and how to go from an activity to fragment. So let's add that checkbox width wrap content, height wrap content. For the checkbox, because we want to use it in our program, we will also do an id at plus id slash, let's say, report check. I will give it also a text, Android text check. Again, I am not using a very good approach here. I am hard coding it, but we have already learned how to create a string resource. So here we just want to learn about the fragments. Let us see what design it generates. So it is generating design where it displays something and there is a checkbox here. Let me refresh. I will currently not worry about it too much. I will go here and I would actually like to create some margins. Let me just add those margins in this, and let's say a 16 dp margin so that we can see our, and in our fragment also I'll just add a 16 dp margin. It is only so that we can see our fragments better. So that's fine. That's our report fragment layout. Similarly, I will create for our detailed fragment underscore detail linear layout. This is all good. Fragment underscore detail match parent. I'll just add a text view where I will just display a text so that we can see the text here. So text view width wrap content height, maybe wrap content, that's sufficient, and I'll just add a text which shows detail fragment. Let me see the design. I go here and I will add a margin of, let's say, 16 dp. Fine. So we have created two layouts because we want to distinguish between the layouts. Now let's go back to our programs. First to the detail fragment. I don't have to do anything except just create a view object by calling the inflate method. This time I will give it the layout ID of the fragment detail. Everything else is same as we did in the last program. This is fine. We will just return V, and as you see all the errors are go. Similarly, we go to the report fragment. So first we will fix the on create view method by doing pretty much the similar thing. The dot inflate r dot layout dot report dot container dot a container false, and then let's say return v. Okay, so now we have created two fragments and we have created one activity. Let's go back to the activity main. It has nothing, but let's go to the landscape. In the landscape we had first created first fragment. Now let's add another fragment, except that for this fragment we will want it to be the detail fragment and with an ID called detail fragment ID. I will give it a weight of 2 because I would like to show you how does the weight play the role. Do a refresh, go here. I'm not too worried about these for the time being. I just want to run it and see what happens. Okay, so we are getting this error. Let's first try to fix it. Okay, so we have made a small mistake here. We should have made the orientation horizontal, because what we were giving is that, as you see, the error is gone. Let me explain what happened. When we did the vertical and we gave it the match parent height with a 0 dp width, obviously this was an error, because in the vertical the individual view elements are placed from top to the bottom. So this should be the horizontal. Now what it means is that it is horizontal, so the height is equal to the parent height, but the width will be decided by the weight. So let's see how it will look. So yes, it will look roughly like this. Let's now run this program and see it. So how does it do? So it starts, that's the portrait. We will change it to landscape. And now you can see our report fragment has come on the left and our detail fragment has come on the right. So from one single activity we were able to call both. Go back to the portrait. In the portrait we are not calling any fragment. Now let's kill it and go back to fixing our activity files. Number one, that let us, even from our portrait mode, let us just add the code which we had in our last program and that is the call by the code and see what happens. So I'm just copying from our last program which we created in our last lecture, and we are adding it. Let me explain it quickly for the people who may have not watched the video. So we are calling a fragment manager, we are creating a fragment, we are giving the ID of the activity main, then we check for the null, we create the new fragment, we are creating a fragment of type report fragment, and then we are adding it. So now in the same program, at one time we are adding a fragment using a code, at other time we are adding two fragments using the XML. So let's run it again and see. So when our program starts in the portrait mode, it will use this code and it should show us the report fragment added, and when we convert it to the landscape, it will show us two fragment added. So one fragment and two fragment. Let's see. So it starts in the portrait mode, it is showing us only one fragment. Now let me rotate it and it shows us the two fragments. Okay, so now we will add few more functionalities. We essentially want to add that how to use the callback method to call an activity method from a fragment. And for that, what we will do is that, as you know, we created a let our application come online, that we created a simple checkbox. We created a simple checkbox in one of our fragment. What we will do is we will put a listener to it, and when we click it, it should call a method in the activity. So if you have forgotten what I am trying to show, let's just quickly go to our lecture slides and let me show you what I am trying to show to you. So I am trying to show to you this, the event callbacks to the activity. So in last lecture we had discussed how do you communicate with the activity, and we have said that one of the method is through an event callback to the activity. So this is what we are going to do now. So let's go back. Yes, so this is our application. Currently nothing is happening, but what we want is that when we click it, it should call a method in the activity using the callback as we discussed in the last lecture. So we will have to do a few things. Number one is that we will have to first add a listener here, which is related to our checkbox, and that listener should be called whenever the checkbox is selected. So a way to do it is that we go into our activity class and we add a method called onCheckboxSelected. So we'll have to override it. So let us override our method called onCheckboxSelected. Public void onCheckboxSelected. I'm doing nothing, but I'm just adding a log entry here because the purpose is to show you how the callback works rather than doing something useful right away. So I would just say callback was called. Now in order for the callback to be called, there are multiple other things that we need to do, and those actions have to be taken in the fragment. So our callback is in the report. So currently I am not okay, so I can possibly add the string to get rid of this error. Private static final string tag equal to main activity. Now go to my report fragment, and that is where the majority of our work will be. So number one thing is that first we will have to create a interface. Let me first define an interface. So our interface we define as we define any other interface. So public interface on checkbox selected. Okay, listener. This only implements one method, public void on check box selected method. Okay, then I will go on and I will first want to create some variables so that I can make use of it. So one of the variable is to make use of the checkbox that we have in our layout, m checkbox. Currently we are not using it, we have simple interface, and then we go and we use the checkbox inside our own create view, and we attach a listener to it. So let me do checkbox equal to checkbox. We want to find view by id r dot id dot, as you can see that this was the id that we had given. So m checkbox dot set on click list, set on checked change listener. Now we will have to go give another anonymous inner class. So new this is a kind of a on, we have done this multiple times on check change listener. So I'm creating another anonymous inner class, and then I am overriding the on check changed. As you see that Android Studio has already created the code for me. The only thing that I need to do is to use our callback from here, to call our callback from here. So first, in order to do that, I will be defining another variable, let's say of the type of interface on check box selected listener, m call back. Then I will be using my new variable m call back here to actually call the method on checkbox selected. Right, now what we have done, let's go back. We have defined an interface, we have defined a variable of that interface, and then we are using that variable to call the callback method, and we already defined that callback method into this, but this is currently not linked because we will have to say that our activity implements the on checkbox selected listener. So yeah, so now our method on checkbox selected associated with this listener is defined in the activity, and the actual interface is defined here. So if you look at the yesterday's slides, that's what we were doing. We're saying if you want to do the callbacks, the activity must implement the interface, and this is the variable which calls it. and that's how it is passed on. So we go back here, everything is ready from our side. So when we select the checkbox now, a method in the activity should be called. So we will be selecting the checkbox in the fragment, but the method in the activity will be called. So let's run the program and see if it is really happening or not. So we will keep watching our logcat window. So yes, it is here. Now this is a fragment being displayed. The fragment has been called by the activity using the code. And hopefully, though I am interacting in the fragment, it should call a callback which is defined in the activity. So let me click it. Now you just saw a bug in our program. I left this bug knowingly, and now we will try to fix it. The purpose is to show you that bugs happen, and usually they happen because of our oversight. So let us see what is our oversight. So first, let me run it again so that you can understand. But this time I will run it using a debugger. So let us first put a debugger breakpoint. And now we will start with the debug and not with the run. So when we debug, our application starts. I click the check, and this time our execution stops at this point. Let us see what happens. So on this point our execution has stopped, which we can see by the blue color. And now we are checking the variables at this point of time. And you can clearly see that the m callback is null. So m callback here is null, and when we call something on a null object, we get a null pointer exception. And that was the exception that we were getting. And if we resume our execution, we will get our exception and our application will crash. So let's now fix this bug. So let's see. So we have missed one important thing in our program, which is that onAttach method. So let us extend and override the onAttach method. Let us implement onAttach. We override public void onAttach, takes one argument of type context. Let's give it any name. We go, the first thing as usual we will call the super onAttach, and then our actual work will start. I will also press Alt Enter, so our error is gone. Here we will see that if we have really attached our interface correctly or not. So I will say a try, and I will say on checkbox selected listener, and I will give it a reference of the. So we have taken the context that we have got, converted it into the right type and passed it to the on callback. So this line was the line that was missing, and just in case there is a problem, we are asking it to throw an exception. Now instead of our app crashing, we now know how to handle the error if at all the error happens. So let's hope that everything will go fine, but still we add a error message. Let's say should implement on checkbox selected listener. Right. So this reference is what we were missing earlier. Now we have provided it. Let's run our program again and see whether we get the right log message, that is this log message, or not. So let's clear our logcat. Wow. So we have got our right log message. That is, we were successfully able to call a method in activity from our fragment. Now let's do the second part. From our activity, we will try to get a reference for the fragment and go back into the fragment. So what I will do is I will add some more code here, which is very similar to the code that we wrote earlier. But this code, what we will try to do is, so we will try to do two things. First, that we will try to call a method from the fragment from our activity, and second thing we will try to do is to replace a fragment, because that is another concept that we still need to try in our program. So we add some more code. Report fragment, let's say report fragment equal to report fragment. So we learned in 2 lectures back that we need to get a fragment manager and then call the method find fragment by id. Now please think and tell me that what id I should give here. So we go to r.id and we will give it the id of the container, because that's where we want our fragment to be picked up. Now we are doing not much, but we are just checking if we have actually got a correct object. So we are just checking for a null value, and then we say report fragment and we want to call some method. So let's create a method in our report fragment class, and I'm calling that method as nothing but a simple public void called from activity. Again, we will do not much, but just print a log message saying tag and called from activity. Okay, let's go back and call it from the activity. Fine. So now if you see that when we press the checkbox now, first this log message should be printed and then this log message should be printed. So let's run our program one more time and see. Here we are, cleared our logcat window, click the check, and you see that we have got the callback was called. So the callback was called, but somehow we have not got this log message. So let's run a debugger again and try to debug the program. So you see that I make very frequent use of the debugger. So this time we are here on checkbox selected. We move forward. We come here, report fragment. I want to check the value of report fragment. It shows some valid value. Then I move forward. Oh, I should have stabbed into. Let me start the debugger again. So select, we resume, we come here, report fragment is definitely not null. I will also say add to watches. So yes, we have the report fragment here, and we step into, oh sorry, okay, so we made a mistake. I set it like this. Actually it should be, when it is not null, then it should be called. So as you can see, some simple mistakes you can make, but the debugger helps you, because we were not getting in the if, we knew that there was some problem, and once we set up the debugger we could figure it out. When I check, and now you see that all the correct messages are printed here. Callback was called, and then from that callback we got the fragment reference, and we called a method in the fragment. So we have gone back and forth from fragment to activity, and then activity to fragment. Now one last thing is missing, which is, let's say, using the backstack. So currently, let me execute it again and try to show you what happens. Currently when I press the back button, my activity is gone. Now what I want to do is that I want to make sure that if I do a replacement of the fragment, then my back button uses the back stack to show me the fragment that was there earlier. Okay, so let's do something. We will go we will add some more code, and we will try to make sure that this time we are into on checkbox selected. Let's add some code right here only. So what I will do is I will add the code which is similar to the code we did earlier. That is the code which we used earlier in the on create. But this time, instead of that, I will use the replace. And as you can see that I am replacing my report fragment with my detail fragment. So let's run this program and see what effect does it bring. So I do come, as you see that now when I press checked, my fragment has been replaced by the detail fragment. If I press back, that for a moment I come back to the previous fragment, but then it again goes because my selected state method is called. So now you see that in this video we have seen all what we had learned in the previous two lectures. I will make this program available on the Piazza. You can download it and check it, but I would also request you to develop this program on your own. Thank you.